Okay, my name is Manuel Angel Hidalgo. I'm 77 years old. I'm a retired Army officer. I retired from the Army in 1980. I then started to sell insurance, but got canned after about 7 years because I wasn't any good at it. I then started a business, and one led to another, and one led to another. So I was a successful entrepreneur, and I sold my last business 5 years ago. I now am fully retired. Okay, now let's talk about the tax code. The tax code is extremely complex, and I have no idea what's in it because it's over 7 feet tall, and I don't think many of them. The problem with the tax code is, though, that Congress uses it as their cookie jar. So big donors give them money, and they say, oh, you want something done? We can put a little thing in, so you get over. So it's a far. That's why I like the fair tax. If we had the fair tax, which is a consumption tax, and it's not regressive, it would take you maybe 3 hours to read it and check it out. And you can see it'd be the best thing that ever happened because it would do away with the IRS. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? Don't worry about them. They'll figure out what to do with them. But it would work. Now, one of the nice things about the fair tax is it is a consumption tax and it's roughly 24%. So when you buy something new, you're going to pay 24%. But you don't have to pay any income tax. And everybody's going to have a piece of the pie. But one of the things I really like about it is that if you look at the fair tax and the underground economy, which is roughly $1.3 trillion, you could collect enough dollars from the underground economy, people that don't pay any taxes, to totally rebuild our infrastructure. And we could do that forever, because there's always going to be an underground economy. So just check out the fair tax and write Congress. It's very difficult to pass, but if we really had enough people going in, we might get it. And I'd love to see it in my lifetime. It'd be a wonderful thing for the country. Now, some of the other things when you write Congress, and when you write them, you want to send them an email, and you're going to get a lousy response back, number 75 or 76. So whenever you say you want to talk about taxes, you're going to get response 75 back. So then you have to go back and say, that's not what I asked you. I want to know why this won't work or why it wouldn't work. Okay, now let's talk about duplicate programs. Thanks to Senator Colburn from Oklahoma, he and several others forced the GAO to issue a report on duplicate and overlapping government programs. Now, the first one was issued in 2011. The first one was March 2011. The next one was February 2012, and the last was done in April. They've identified $290 billion of duplicate and overlapping programs, and they've only reduced about 5% of them so far. And that's a mandatory thing, so that's a good thing, right? Why can't you reduce them? Like their transportation is duplicate, job programs duplicate, money for the poor, money for children, money for teachers, and they just have offices all over. It's just duplicate and overlapping. Just think that could save us a lot of money. Now, the next thing I'm going to mention is a car called the Chevy Spark. That car is made in South Korea by General Motors, where General Motors have it. There's a Chevy Spark made in South Korea. And it's only being sold in California and Oregon. Now, that's a battery-operated car. So therefore, they get a tax credit of $7,500. So the car is made in Korea, sold in California and Oregon only. Because it's an efficient battery-operated car, they get a $7,500 tax credit. Now, I don't mind tax credits, but if you're going to give somebody a tax credit for energy innovation, it should be for goods only made or assembled in this country. No ifs, buts, and that. We're talking about that. If you're talking about General Motors, which is what Chevy is, one of the best-selling cars in China is the Buick. It's one of the leading selling cars in China. But how did they do it? What did China say? You can sell your car here, but you have to build it here. Everything comes from China. Now, the reason I mention this in the Chevy Spark is India and China are both have an automotive industry. And they're going to want to export their stuff to us. And we should say, yes, you can sell it here, but it's got to be built in this country. And that's something you should write your congressman. There should be changes on that. Speaking of that, we should look at all of our trade agreements and work them out. Now, ethanol is both inefficient and ineffective. And I don't know how else to describe it. Yet it's mandatory. Who benefits by it? The farmers, the processors, and the shippers. And guess who one of the biggest shippers is? Warren Buffett. That's why do we do it? It's driving up food prices. If you notice the price of hamburgers and steaks, they're going to go up. And we have a mandatory quota that we have to use for ethanol. Now, agriculture, nobody wants to talk about the agricultural subsidies. One of the things about the agriculture is they've got massive farm subsidies, and they basically go to very rich people and rich farmers. They don't really help the little guy. And one of the worst ones is the sugar. That drives up all of the sugar prices. The government has to buy X amount of dollars. The percentage is like 80% of the sugar. So it benefits growers in Colorado and Florida. So the same people that want to say austerity, they'll vote for those subsidies. But it's driving up all of the costs, and small manufacturers can't compete. There's no reason sugar we can't compete. Or it could be used with Haiti. For example, Haiti could certainly use the sugar plantations. They could grow it. And maybe we wouldn't have so many problems coming out of Haiti. I mean, but we need to look at all the subsidies. They're ridiculous. Now let's talk about the politics a little bit. They all go to Congress with great intentions, but pretty soon they get caught into what's going on. You know, you've got your special interest group pulling you here. Then you've got other people on here, and then what? You have to get reelected, so you start doing things. They just want to get reelected. Now, money comes at a price. 26% of the dollars that are donated to Congress and political things comes if 250. People that give $250 or less represent 26% of the money that's going into the polls, to the politicians. The rest of it comes at a price. They have a special interest. They want to favor the tax code, or they want something changed. You know, they go and talk to the Congress. All we want is a fair. We don't want any special. We just want to be able to compete fair. Well, that's a lot of BS. They all want a favor. So when you talk to politicians, they're being pushed by special interest groups, insiders, and then you've got the lobbyists. And lobbyists are just terrible. Do you realize that we've got lobbyists that are ex-speakers of the House and Senate majority leaders who are working for foreign companies and foreign governments? That's not necessarily in our best interest. Do you think that should be allowed? I don't.
Well, folks, after looking Washington over, I'm convinced that this country does not need a good 5-cent cigar. What the country and fewer politicians.